Now on to section 4, where we look at evaluation in ESD as inclusive evaluative learning. And once again, the same question, what is being evaluated here? So we're able to look much deeper into the evaluative learning that is occurring. And here the question is, who is doing this evaluative work? Much more inclusive and participatory focus. And of course, you can already see that when you look at as ESD, it implies that in the ESD, that the evaluative work is centered on people learning together and taking creative initiatives. So 3 evaluative tools that we're going to look at. Some fairly conventional. One is very useful for teachers, the 5T lesson planning and assessment tool. Looks at how do we ensure that we've got a good mix of learner-led work or learner-led assessment work that is being done or learner-led evaluative learning that is being done. Then looking at conventional Bloom's taxonomy and orientating evaluative work much more in the higher order skills and competencies level. And finally, we look at a very useful tool that's coming out for the assessment of significant learning as an expansion of conventional assessment in a classroom setting. So the first tool is the 5 T's of action learning, which came out of a UNESCO 2018 publication. And here what we've done is we've taken a conventional curriculum framework of cognitive, social, emotional, and behavioral, associated with an action of concern, and looking at a learning process as an iterative process across these 3 areas. And this has been done in the Handprint Care project, and it's been very useful for us to work with when we talk about the students working from real pictures and real stories, where photo deliberation, tuning in, talking together, and thinking about things is an opening quadrant 1 activity. And then story sharing, talking and thinking together in the sharing of stories. All of that happening in quadrant 1, so that the learners are able to draw out of their cultural histories and life experiences and begin to engage with the knowledge in the curriculum. And then local inquiry. So they're going to go out and touch things in the local environment and reflect on things. They're going to tune in to the local situation and talk and think. Now you start seeing that the process of evaluative learning is quite rich towards handprint actions, where practical things in the local environment and talking about these things and taking action about them are a progression that leads into quadrants 3 and 4 in a learning sequence that a teacher might plan in a classroom situation. So let's jump into a subject teaching and assessment process in school, where children are going to learn and find out things and explore and work things out. And here it would be the acquisition of knowledge and participation in exploratory work together. So the subject teacher teaches using real stories, heritage, and this provides us a startup for the learners to start their critical inquiry by raising questions around matters of concern. Then they go and find out through more depth inquiry and develop systems thinking that allows them to extend the empathy and concern that they're developing for these issues. Then they can start to work out and work together on these things that might be done to make the world a better place and more just and sustainable. And then applying this in some sort of purposeful way through their evaluative learning to trying out more sustainable and just alternatives. Now, that's all very well, but how do we go about assessing it and then use the assessments as an evaluative tool to see how our ESD is working? So what I've done here in the handprint care work is we've taken a conventional Bloom's taxonomy, and here the sequence is the learners are able to ask and answer questions using keywords and concepts, and this can be done in tests and exams, can do things to answer questions, that's more initiative, and this is tasks and activity assessment, translation tasks and practical tasks and activities, and then can report, expand, and apply to find answers. This is projects, assignment, and case studies. So here we've got a conventional assessment tool in an ordinary classroom, and it's actually foundational for ESD because knowing and remembering is a necessary requirement for understanding and applying. And then analysis, evaluation, and innovation, which are the sort of quadrant 3 and quadrant 4 activities, you can now see through conventional assessment practices that you can get to quite high levels of evaluative learning in the ordinary subject discipline situation of a curriculum setting. Now, in Southern Africa, where the education requirements are specified for the curriculum, you look at ESD being activated and explored around the prior knowledge of the students. And here we found it really important to bring in intergenerational heritage as a foundation, the life experience of the learners, and the subject knowledge. It's the combination of these that produce the foundations for ESD as evaluative learning. And in the quadrant 1 situation, often in handprint care, we start with real stories and we raise questions and the inquiry can begin to advance. But we're doing formative and process assessment as we go along, because what we're able to do is to say, okay, what are the students beginning to know and beginning to remember? And the education department specifies that if we're going to have an assessment tool to assess learning and to evaluate a program, then this should be about 40%. Then finding out and working out requires much more learner initiative and much more inquiry, and this understanding and applying comes with this level. And then finally, trying out, reporting back, assessing learning and change. Immediately you get analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, those higher order skills that teachers are pushing for, because these are at the heart of evaluative learning that is going to be the ESD process that we're exploring together. Now, some of my colleagues, Professor Shumba from Zambia, Caleb Mandikonza at the University of Witwatersrand, and Haile Sasitka at the Environmental Learning Research Center, they've been exploring some work that has been done to extend this into reviewing or tool for reviewing significant learning, and therefore for evaluating ESD as an evaluative process. So here they ask the question, can the learner identify, critique, understand, and describe a matter of concerning used in system thinking and in-depth understanding? And then this is the sort of foundational knowledge question. And you can see that it's in the higher order band. And then, can the learner analyze, interpret, and apply knowledge to solve problems in relation to sustainable development matters of concern in a particular context? And that's the foundational knowledge and application. Then they go further and say, can the learner describe, synthesize, and align different types of knowledge, like heritage knowledge, looking at their valuing and the skills that they've got in order to contribute. So here the agency of being able to contribute to problem solving and change processes. Then, is the learner able to show care and concern for others and their surroundings? Here's the idea of human and ecological dimensions of empathy, which feeds into the idea of caring. Can the learner reflect on a situation and show empathy and compassion for self, community, and other life forms? And then learning how to learn Is the learner able to critique, evaluate, review, formulate, and generate new ideas and suggestions for change? So here are some tools that we're looking at for evaluation in ESD. And in ESD, it is the people, it is the learners that are doing this. And in this evaluative work, it needs to be central to the people being included in any evaluation process. And here are some references that you might find useful to explore these ideas for yourself.